OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate. Niggas don't know what to think. Thought I get money and change. What you thought we was the same? Still stay away from them clones. Niggas better leave me alone. Talking about niggas is low. Run with niggas who don't know you. Whoa, I made that zagging when city to city. You niggas not hot in your state. If it was money to get a hit Henny, we get it and never complain. Same go for the gang, and we split it up all the same. I can't really eat, let's stay straight, cause we go way back in the day. My day ones from back in the day, they still hang around me today. You wanna come round us, you can't. I'm rolling up loud, it's great. But mama, she bad but complain, cause I'm too in love with my dreams. And I gotta get on the plane, and go get this money with Dizzy. I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang.
I get the bag with the gang, taking that Zach to the bank. Henny be all in my drink. You niggas is stupid, you think that shit change? You not even hot in your gang. Ain't nothing even hot about your gang. You niggas be lying about saying, be posting them pictures of guns for the fame. Niggas just look at me different now. Say that's your man, but he a clown. Don't fuck around with the fuck arounds. Little nigga, you should cut it out. Me and my niggas take different routes. Punch a bitch nigga all in his mouth. Hold up my nigga, we different now. I need a Robert, this is my style. I get a check today, I spent it all tomorrow. I get a bitch today, she probably a foreign model. I get a check today, I spent it all tomorrow. I'm with my gang today, tomorrow never promise.
OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang.
Attention, please. Please do not smoke in the terminal building. Smoking is only permitted in the specified smoking areas.
Zach.
Thank you.
OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate. Niggas don't know what to think. Thought I get money and change. What you thought we was the same? Still stay away from them clones. Niggas better leave me alone. Talking about niggas is low. Run with niggas who don't know you. Whoa, I made that zagging when city to city. You niggas not hot in your state. If it was money to get a hit Henny, we get it and never complain. Same go for the gang, and we split it up all the same. I can't really eat, let's stay straight, cause we go way back in the day. My day ones from back in the day, they still hang around me today. You wanna come round us, you can't. I'm rolling up loud, it's great. But mama, she bad but complain, cause I'm too in love with my dreams. And I gotta get on the plane, and go get this money with Dizzy. I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang.
that Zach to the bank. And it be all in my drink. You niggas is stupid.
I think I'm cute. I know I'm sexy. I've got the look that drives the girls while I got the moves that really move them. I send chills up and down their spines. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. Let's go. I make them hot. I make them shiver. Things get weak. Whenever I'm around, they see me walk. They hear me talk. I make them feel like their God ain't real. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. That mic flip though. Hands off the merchandise. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. Welcome everybody to another edition of the Pocket Locker Podcast. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast, and as always, folks, I am in woo! Airplane mode. All right, folks, we got a great show, serious show lined up for you today. Before we get into it, let's go ahead and get into our communion. You should already know the goddamn drill. Please raise your glasses and hold on to your asses. Through him, with him, in the unity of the flying man. All glory and honor is yours who flight for our sins forever and ever. You may drink. All right, and now for our communion song. This one comes to us courtesy of Foy Vance. It's called Where Everybody Knows Your Name.
And he's going to play us out. Foy, you're going to play what to finish us up?
Do you know what? I don't know the name of this song, actually, but I know the song, and so will you.
Oh, look forward to this. Foy Vance, take it away.
Making your way in the world today takes everything you got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away?
All right, Caterpillar is first.
Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see troubles are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name. Well, all those nights when you got no lights and the check is in the mail, and your little angel on the countered by its tail.
All right, Crystal is second.
Your third fiance didn't show.
And Kasparian Chrysler is third.
Well, sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and you're always glad they came. You wanna be where you can see troubles are all the same.
All right, I've got Caterpillar, Lena.
You wanna go where
I've got
everybody
Nessa in the
knows your
chat.
name.
Pragmatic Crystal.
Well, you get out of bed,
Carrie
coffee's
Ann's here.
dead,
Lena's
the
here.
morning isn't looking bright.
Joel Hadaway's
You shrink
here.
right off to Europe and he doesn't even write. Your girlfriend says she's not a girl. Be glad there's one place in the
Foxy's in the
world
house.
where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see troubles are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name. You wanna be where you can see troubles are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
Discord is where all the cool kids hang out. All the cool kids are in Discord. Discord is our
Foy, Vance. Most common word coming in by text, Foy, is
communication
goosebumps. Believe it or not,
server
we've had that
for when we're
repeatedly across the
offline.
whole series. If you want to see Foy, Vance,
fuck is a Discord? Technically speaking, it's a good question. This is our Discord. When you join the Discord, you gotta agree to these rules right here. Mostly just keep your dick in your pants and don't be a jerk. And then you join the guest room and the bot's all like, yeah, we got a new guest here. And then we make you a member. And then you get to all these channels, and this is where we hang out. This section's all about watching me. These are community tabs where we put videos and live streams, social media posts, or self-promo stuff. Lena's been putting her notes from church. And then we've got text channels and voice channels. But yeah, this is where you hang out. It's also how you get access to Gather. But yeah, maybe I'll do Discord and Gather tutorials in the next day or so here. I don't want to get myself too sidetracked from today's agenda. All right, so thank you all for joining me here. Yeah, Joel, sounds like a great idea. I'm with it. Yeah, Gather's definitely what we're trying to promote right now. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into what happened today, gang. So, for those of you that are unaware, my girl, Anna Kasparian, man, I'm a huge fan. She definitely stepped in it today on Twitter. And, I think it's important that essentially we point out failures in allyship as I am hoping this will ultimately be classified under. And, I think for me, it's kind of been a challenging day in the sense that when this first happened, I was a bit confused at why people were coming at her so hard. Like, in my mind, I know Anna to be progressive and, pro-trans and a very inclusive person. And I, count on to be a voice of strong progressiveness, definitely on the left. Some people think not left enough, but I certainly expect her and TYT to provide a sort of, I don't know, I don't want to say mainstream, but maybe palatable platform for progressive voices. And I watch a lot of their content. I think we use a lot of their stuff probably on the show from time to time. But this was tough because I think at first myself, I didn't quite understand what the conflict was all about or why people were so frustrated with her. And so I had to, do quite a bit of reading in the thread to get a feel for where people were coming from. And then we had quite an extended conversation in Gather about it, probably for a couple hours or so. But let me go ahead and get into the comment, and then we'll get into the conversation from there. All right. So the comment she made is, I'm a woman. Oh, wait, hang on a second. I don't have that screen. Hang on. There we go. All right. I'm a woman. Please don't ever refer to me as a person with a uterus, birthing person, or person who menstruates. How do people not realize how degrading this is? You can support the transgender community without doing this shit. Now, to be honest with you, I have really only heard these phrases, person with the uterus, birthing person, or person who menstruates, sort of in the realm of reproductive rights. And, certainly the conversation around Roe v. Wade. And outside of that, I've primarily heard it as descriptors used by right-wingers who, I believe the term for them is TERF, trans-exclusionary radical feminist, who use language like this in a way that is exclusionary of trans women. And I also find terms like this bothersome when coming from communities like that, because it seems to be an effort to essentialize sex and gender in a way that I feel misuses biology. Like, everybody's trying to do the sex and gender are separate, sex is biology, and gender is, social construct. And while that's certainly the case and should be relatively uncontroversial, I feel like the way people use biology in those conversations is often inaccurate and frustrating and misrepresents what biologists do, right? Biology has no interest in being used politically to determine who or who is not entitled to anything, right? Like, biology just, to me, like, really doesn't belong in this conversation. But that's not the problem, right? What I saw was a woman frustrated about these terms that, from what I saw, were used in a way that's exclusionary of trans women and problematic, like I said, for trying to essentialize sex. But that is not what's happening here. What's actually happening is a person with a uterus, birthing person, or person who menstruates are inclusive terms that are necessary right now because they address the needs specifically of trans men who are oftentimes excluded from, as I understand it, just our general awareness when it comes to trans issues, but more to the point, targeted with particular legislation, right? And so there are then, therefore, a number of problems, as I understand it, with this comment now. Number one, no one that I can imagine would ever try to tell Anna Kasparian she's not a woman. So there seems to be an offense here that is, like, not a real thing. It sort of reminds me of when I got frustrated when people tell me, oh, they'll fight for our right to defend ourselves against bigots, but they'll also fight for the rights of, particularly white males to say whatever they want to say. And I'm like, well, when has the rights of a white man ever needed to be defended? I think this is a situation where this just isn't a thing that people use to come at cis women. And so that seems to be a problem. On top of that, to problematize inclusive language in this way only seems to reinforce trans exclusionary rhetoric. And to call inclusive language degrading feeds right into hateful narrative against trans people. On top of that, she does have a huge platform. She is in this business and expected to show more sensitivity about this. And then to sort of end it with a statement about supporting the transgender community in a tweet that is itself perceived as anti-trans is incredibly problematic. Almost in a way, it seems to be attempting to shut down discussion about this and the narrative about people she may have hurt rather than be receptive to their voices. Now, I don't want to, sit here and lecture on these issues. I just thought it was important to start this whole thing by making you guys aware of what happened and being clear about why I was wrong. I don't want to just come out here and say, oh, I was wrong. I want to say, no, here's what I thought initially. Here's why I now think I was wrong. Why I also think Anna was wrong. And I hope that my explanation of that shift in thinking accurately reflects the information I've received, particularly from people who are affected by this issue. But with that being said, I want to open this up to people in Gather who are here with me. Fortunate enough to have a bunch of people here with me. I think Wayne, Joel, Lena, Spider, Stephanie, and UC Love are here. And as I mentioned, this also want to mention quickly that this rhetoric is also very indicative of the type of rhetoric used by J.K. Rowling. And I have to admit, I wasn't fully up on what she said. I was told by people I trust that she was a transphobe and she'd made very problematic transphobic comments. Quite frankly, that's enough for me. And, I don't, have to explain that shit to me. It'd be like if I said to somebody that I thought somebody said something racist and then they demanded an explanation, I would find that a bit insensitive. But it kind of came full circle because what she said was reminiscent of that situation. And so Stephanie provided me with the video with a trans man who's a content creator who addressed Rowling's content, and we're going to revisit that. But I will say I regret not getting more informed about exactly what the controversy was with J.K. Rowling at the time. Had I done that, I feel like I would have been more alert to exactly how some of this rhetoric presents itself. But yeah, I just think that, I had some other streams I've been wanting to do lately, but like I said, I think if we're gonna try to do better as allies, we need to talk about when we fucked it up and when we have learning opportunities so that we can hopefully get better. All right, let me unmute Gather. Steph, thanks so much for your patience and being willing to again step in and play the role of involuntary educator. But I do appreciate you.
Yeah, it's a thing, and Twitter is a thing. I think that the overarching context here is who she is and where she made the statement. Okay. One of the things that that struck me is that this was done in a forum that is uniquely designed with the word limit and the culture around Twitter that is bound to eliminate subtleties. And you know, it's just it's designed for polemic. It's not designed for discussion, really. And a person like Anna, a person like Sank, a platform like the Young Turks surely understand that. But yet she did it anyway. And I have to ask myself why. I mean, you put out a tweet like that, you have to know you're going to get pushback. Why? Is it because controversy sells? Is it because, I mean, I don't know. I'm speculating here, but why Twitter of all places? And, you know, the Young Turks has a platform where they could really delve into these issues deeply with some consideration. Now, to the tweet itself, I doubt that Anna has ever been called a person with a uterus personally, or a person who menstruates personally. I do know that there's an awful lot of discourse around that says terms like this are too woke, too just too, look, they're icky. You know, it's like, oh, why?
Awkward, all
And
this
they're
stuff.
these terms that the reason why is really quite simple. If somebody could explain it to people, it's because not everyone with a uterus is a woman. Some people who have uteruses are trans men. Trans men menstruate. Trans men have problems that are traditionally viewed, you know, in the medical field as being uniquely ascribed to women. And gender critical people would have you believe that people who have these issues, these medical issues, are in fact women, inalterably so, because of their body parts. Trans people transgress that view of biological essentialism, where your gender is defined by your body parts, is defined by all of that stuff. Feminists have decried that sort of classification of you have this body part, then you're then you're qualified for these roles in society. And trans people just sort of blow that out of the water. Trans men especially. The weird thing to me is that it always winds up being an affront to womanhood that trans women exist. It's you know, the tweet to me makes no sense. I mean, I agree. You know, Anna shouldn't be referred to by virtue of her possession or lack of a uterus, her biological process month to month. No, of course she shouldn't. No woman should. I shouldn't.
And that's the
But the point is, nor should trans men. And I want to read what a trans man, Evan Urquhart, who is a journalist as well, said.
Sure. I'm also going to play
And
the video.
it's a mirror of that tweet, of Anna's tweet. And it reads,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I am a man. Please don't ever refer to me as a woman or use women to refer to all people who share body parts I have or who have experienced things I have also experienced. How do people not realize how degrading this is? You can support women without doing this shit. And the contrast between that, I want to highlight this, the last words. You can support women without doing this shit, says Evan. What does Anna say? What does Anna say? She says, after saying what she said, you can support the transgender community without doing this shit. Well, the transgender community is not just trans women. The transgender community includes our brothers who bleed, who have children, who bear children. And she seems to, want to tweet the same kind of rhetoric that is being used by people who bear us incredible ill will, to the point where 50% of trans children in this country either have now or are at risk of soon not having access to gender affirming care today. She's a member of the media. She is clearly aware of these issues. And yet she is willing to take to a medium like Twitter and post something like that. That's very disturbing.
What always gets me about situations like this, and I feel like it's one of the things that really set me off with Doug from Pine Creek and other content creators, but him in particular, is timing matters. And if you make content that is insensitive towards a particular community at a particularly vulnerable or insensitive time, I think that has to be taken into account, right? That makes it extra problematic. And one of the things that I've never understood is why she made that tweet to begin with. And I think that I certainly am not in the position to say what would be a satisfying effort to make amends for a comment like this. But in my mind, ideal transparency would include some sort of revelation about what she was responding to, right? Do you feel like that's, like, she needs to address that? Otherwise, this just really seems like it's hard for people to not see it as a pointless attack.
It would be good, I know, again, Twitter is a terrible medium because, of course, of course, people are going to take issue with this for the reasons that I outlined, and I hope I did it in a fairly reasonable way.
You did.
Of course, people are going to take offense. Of course, she realizes that people are going to take offense because she's in the business.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, what? Hey. And but the reaction, the pushback thus far, we'll see how it goes going forward. But the reaction from Sank was basically, hey, we're not going to be bullied into taking a position, blah, 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 blah. Well, that to me is it's like, look, for all the reasons I laid out, it's like you have never been referred to, you, Anna, have never been referred to as a person with a uterus personally. The bugbear in this whole thing is that public health officials and hospitals have been confronted recently with the notion that trans men exist. And therefore, within that therapeutic setting, a person, a trans man with fibroids presents at a clinic, at a GP. Their GP refers them to a clinic, or further diagnostic situation, and they're a trans guy. They have ovaries, they have a uterus, or they might not have a uterus. You can still have your ovaries and not have a uterus. It's like, it's a medical situation, right? But is it therapeutic for that medical institution to misgender the person? Is it therapeutic in the grand scheme of things? A person's health has to do with a lot more than what's physically wrong with them. It has to do with how they feel about themselves. If you feel like shit about yourself and are being demeaned in some other way, that's not good. So the medical community says, okay, what do we do with these people? We don't call them women. We recognize, we honor who they are, right? Is that really that hard?
Yeah.
And this is where this language gets used. It's not used colloquially. It's not, nobody goes into a bar and saying, I'm looking for a person with a uterus, nobody, that's a hell of a pickup line, isn't it?
Right.
It's kind of, it's a fucking ridiculous, it's a ridiculous notion on its face. Nobody does this. And so to be resentful of particular situations for okay, let's say trans people are 0.2% of the population. And let's say that trans men make up half of that. So we're talking about 0.1% of the population. Is it really too much of an imposition to ask for some recognition on a therapeutic level of those people's situations? It seems petulant.
Yeah, that's the part that I didn't recognize at first, right? But it's the targeting of the inclusive language, which is important. And the thing that bothers me in all of this is it's another situation where the right has created this monster, right, with their whatever they're doing, right, and now there's all these linguistic traps that they create by infusing this language with so much meaning. But then those of us that are supposed to be helping and not hurting, we take the bait when we reject the language, when the language is actually the language that is helping us. And they've now allowed us to turn against the language that we need. And it reminds me of what happens with critical race theory, where this was a thing that they made, that nobody was talking about, nobody was using, never came up in conversation. It only had a very narrow academic use of it. The right wing picked up on it. They started using it. And then all of a sudden people on the left were going, well, what if we just don't talk about that? Why don't we call it something else? What if we do that? Why do we even need to do this? And I'm sitting there going, this is important, because without it, these scholars who have needed this theoretical framework to bring about all this understanding that we're now benefiting from, we can't just throw out their work because these people are assholes. And what I feel like I myself a bit fell for was not realizing, hey, when you see the right throwing out some language and using it in this sort of politically weaponized fashion, we really have to do our homework before engaging in the conversation, because chances are, right, it's a trap, right? I mean, literally.
You know, the problem is, you know, the problem is both the statement coming from a person who should have known that in engaging with this on this platform would
I see it not
raise
go
a
well.
shitstorm.
Not go well.
It's not gonna turn out well. But there's an easy way out. It seems to me that there's an easy way out for the Young Turks saying, Anna, rather than digging in their heels and saying, we won't back down, we won't be bullied. I'm not bullying anybody, just I'm pointing out, you've overlooked something here. It's, you know, your concluding statement, you can support the transgender community without doing this shit. You are not supporting trans men in saying this shit.
Yeah, and I really get the counter statement that you read in that context now. That makes a lot of sense. And that's what I was trying to get at, right? Is trying to understand that we can support women without doing what Anna did, right?
I don't have a uterus. I don't have periods. I'm no less a woman than Anna is, who does, and probably I'm 69 years old. If I were a natal female, if I were, if I had ovaries and a uterus when I was born, I would, I might not have one now, and I certainly wouldn't be having periods now. Right. So it's like, I am no less a woman for that. Right. I don't wish to be judged any more than she does, or than any woman does, upon her
presence or absence.
Presence or absence, looks, boobs, size, any of this bullshit. And that's a keystone of fucking misogyny that no woman appreciates, and no woman should appreciate. Every woman should sit there and say, why am I at the meat market being judged by the contents of my body, or my looks, or my that or the other thing? That's misogyny. It's particularly directed at trans women. That's trans misogyny.
Right.
But when cis people think about trans issues, they never think about trans men.
Right.
And that is a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the way out here is, I didn't realize, I made this, I had a moment, I was pissed, but I was blah, 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 blah. But I hadn't really considered how I might not be supporting the trans masculine community by making the statement that I just made.
And I just
and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. I do support people's right to be who they are, and in being who they are, to receive appropriate and compassionate and considerate medical care in the situations that they find themselves in. And I think that Anna might hear that, but she's not going to hear that on Twitter, because everybody's going to get up in her grill and give her the what for. But she put it out there.
Yeah.
And certainly should have expected to get that stuff, and the responses I've seen from Tank is like, bring it.
That I want to talk about that.
I am seriously disappointed in that. I am seriously disappointed that that for whatever reason, this is the way it seems to be going. And this is what bothers me about, people talk about the left can't hold its shit together, and this is why the right is laughing all the way to the ballot box.
Yeah, so
the issues are sufficiently disturbing to a person like Ms. Kasparian that she feels that she needs to put out tropes from gender critical people, bioessentialists that have been around for at least 7 years.
Yeah. I just want to say something about the bullying comment, because I think it's incredibly important for us to pay attention to. And to be honest, this is part of my response in the situation that we had in our community with, Doug and Nitty and Tux and that whole thing. And you touched on it, and I want to say this: I am sometimes critical of the left, right? I've talked about the left eating itself. I do sometimes think that's a thing. But I want to be clear: I don't think that's what's happening here. Matter of fact, I think yes, people have been emotional in their criticisms of Anna here. And some people have said, "Oh, I don't want to watch you, or I'm going to block your stuff until this is resolved, or whatever." But I don't think that's been out of scope or out of order. And I think most of the feedback was incredibly constructive. So I just don't think that this is an example of that. And in line with that, as a fan, I hope Jank is doing the emotional response of, Anna, I've got your back in public, and then privately, I'm going to talk to you and sit you down and talk about how maybe we can address this in a way, right, where and I think that of in the sense that, like, I would hope, like, when I've made professional mistakes, right, where my advisor is not going to throw me under the bus in public. He's going to have my back. And then in private, he's going to be like, now, here's why you're going to learn from this experience so that you don't put me in this situation again. And I'm not saying that that's what's happening. I'm saying that's what I hope would be happening here. In either way, it's still
going to happen on Twitter.
Right. Like, it ain't going to happen on Twitter, right? He's not going to correct her here, right? But I still think, even with that being said, it's not okay to insinuate that this is a form of bullying that needs to be stood up to. Like, that's, and this is what I want to talk about, because this has hurt me in this community when dealing with issues that I am at the tip of the spear about, like race and stuff, right? I'm dealing with the person who, in my mind, has done something incredibly outwardly bigoted, biased, and most people would say this is what it is. If a person is a person of color or, affected by these issues, they're going to look at this person's behavior and go, it's problematic. Here's why, point blank, end of story. Now, when we finally, sorry, let me just finish this point. When we finally put our foot down and say, I'm not going to tolerate this, and if you enable this, I'm not going to tolerate that either. Now, all of a sudden, people are going, well, you're controlling who so-and-so can talk to. You're bullying people into doing what you want them to do. Da-da-da-da-da. So wait, when boundaries are drawn, when hurt is made clear and people are trying to address that hurt, that's the bullying that needs to be addressed. But when the hurtful things are said to begin with, when the marginalized population finds themselves at the tip of the spear, that's not the bullying that needs to be stood up to. That really pisses me off in all of this. Right? Like, I'm not trying to throw Jank or Anna under the bus, but don't act like you're being bullied here. Because then now you're taking the high ground of you're looking down your nose at other people like they're like that does get me, because it's very asymmetrical in taking that type of stance against quote unquote bullying.
You know,
I agree.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm no medium. I'm a sailmaker. I don't know any of this shit. But it seems to me that if I'm Cenk Uygur, I'm not putting
It's
out something 11.
Cenk Uygur, just to let you know.
Cenk Uygur. I don't give. Whatever. I'm sorry. Cenk Uygur. Okay. Fine. If I'm Cenk, I'm not putting out a statement 11 hours ago saying, here's something everyone on the left and right should know. At the Young Turks, we don't get bullied. We love you and we'll fight for you, but we're not going to change our mind because you think our opinion, in quotes, is incorrect, in quotes, or because you yelled at us. Never going to happen.
Yeah, that's a good position. If I was on the TYT PR team, at the top of tomorrow's show or today's show, I would invite the most prominent trans male individual that we can get into contact with. And we're going to have like a 10-minute conversation at the top of the show. Just her and Anna. No Jank, no anybody else.
Him
They're,
and
they're
Anna.
gonna and Anna's just gonna ask, this is my statement.
Wait, him
What do
and
you see
Anna.
wrong?
Him and Anna.
Huh? You said her.
The most prominent trans male person.
Yeah, and Anna. I'm sorry, my pronouns got mixed.
It's okay. It's all right.
And that's my fucking point. You just made my fucking point for me.
Well, no, it was a slip of the tongue with pronouns.
No, it wasn't. It's slip of the tongue. Yes, it was a slip of the tongue, but it's a slip of the tongue that is as common as it is because trans men are ignored as men.
No, I hear you, but I swear to you, in that moment, I'm legitimately her. The only her.
You're saying you're convincing. You're twisting it with Anna's pronoun. It's
just
fine.
Can switch the pronoun the other place. Yeah, Anna
it's okay.
would sit there for 10 minutes, put this tweet right on the big ass TV behind her, and say, "What do you find issue with this? How are you hurt by this?" And then they have a conversation, and then Anna says, "Okay, I take that into account. I apologize." And then you just continue on with the fucking show. That's what I would like.
That would be good.
But the problem I have is when people start with the sort of chest beating of the I'm not going to back down, I'm not going to be bullied, it's like they're emotionally investing in not doing that, right? They're putting themselves in a position where to be sorry is to be weak, to admit that you've made a mistake is to, give in to the bullying instead of just being like, I hurt people. I didn't intend to hurt people. Now I understand how I hurt people, and let's bring attention to not hurting people like this anymore.
Right.
But here's the way the Twitterverse and the atmosphere where they started this fight. This is how it goes down. You get someone who is pissed off. Trans guy writes, "Enough! The idea of man, woman are nothing more than an oppressive binary that you propagate now. Most people are gender fluid. So, most people are gender fluid. Sex is a social construct, nothing more." I disagree. In 2023, you will either learn to use inclusive language or you will be out of business. Your choice. Now, look, this is Twitter. That's an inflammatory, ridiculous tweet. Cenk replies with a whole bunch of laughing my ass off emojis, and then it goes on. The #1 grifter show in America has turned their back on the oppressive trans queer ideology. They were their main darlings before. Why? Because grifter's gonna grift, but still pretty amazing and a good win for sanity. This is the LGB without the TQ. This is a transphobe, and Cenk replies, "I never say never. Let's see who's right." Dude. Not a good look.
they're
Not a good look.
they're not.
Just not a good look. Get a grip. Realize what you did and where you did it, and understand these are the consequences. What you did had tons of transphobes running to your defense.
Yes.
Saying, "Yeah, damn right. Absolutely,
Yes.
No uterus, no woman." And which is probably the exact opposite of what Anna intended to say.
100%.
Yes.
But this is how the right wing talking point gets ostensibly left wing people. I'll grant left wing people to fall into the trap of help, I'm being oppressed, and leaving the people who are actually being left out of the discussion completely behind.
Yeah, I also want to say something about cognitive limits and limits of perspective. Today brought to the forefront some issues for me where I really felt the need to reflect on what I ask of other people, and I'm going to ask of myself to sit with this for a couple days, right? Because, you need to take time to think. That's part of learning. But what I hear so much in this community that we get wrong is people in a privileged perspective, often white men, talking about an issue foreign to them, be it sex and gender, race, class, whatever it is, and seeming to act as if they need to understand in order to be convinced that they need to change, right? Or that they need to do what is being asked of them in the current, social sphere, right? And something happened today that was really important. I really do appreciate people taking the time to try to help me understand that issue. And I'm grateful because I feel like that's people volunteering their time in a way that they don't have to. But there was moments in the conversation, in what I was reading, and when I was hearing people, where I literally was trying to remind myself, you may not get this. And there are going to be certain things that somebody lays out for you, And if you don't have the information, education, perspective, or whatever it is to fully grasp and, walk yourself through what they're saying, at some point, you're just going to have to say, I hear what you're saying, and I can and am willing to change whatever you need so that I'm a part of the solution and not a part of the problem, right? And I think that this is one of those issues where, as much as I want to say, look, don't let the right trap you, don't let them fool you. But look, at the same point, like you said, you got to see who shows up and supports what you're saying. And if the people who clearly oppose what we're trying to do are applauding you, and the people we're trying to support are telling you you've done something that hurt them and that this is not helpful to them, at some point, it doesn't matter what your perspective is. It doesn't matter what you were attempting to do. It doesn't matter what you get or don't get. It just matters that you understand what is happening right now and what you need to do as a result of it. And I hope that somebody that has enough persuasion with her gets that through to people in this situation.
But here's yet another illustration of how this winds up being, counterproductive. That they, once again, she put that out there. She got pushback. She put that out there on Twitter.
Right.
She got pushback. A piece of pushback was this was back to Chank. She isn't going to learn from this and will probably bring you further down, as is often the case. Chank quote tweets this and says, "This kind of patronizing attitude makes people loathe far left extremists."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all of a sudden, trans people are far left extremists. So Chank himself is now portraying on Twitter trans people as far left extremists. Who the fuck are you to say that Anna should, quote, learn, unquote, what to say? Here's a man explaining to a woman what she should call herself. This mansplainer probably pretends to be a progressive. This is Chank. This is Chank thinking that this is a proper defense of a mistake.
Right.
And it's not going well. This doesn't end well because guess what? He's bought the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and now he is pushing the narrative.
It's weird. It's weird.
Just like Jonathan Chait is doing, just like Jesse Singal is doing, just like all of the so-called left liberal folk do when it comes to trans issues. They don't take the time to understand the consequences of what they say because they don't have trans people telling them this ain't the drill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're not in the conversation. Trans people are not in this conversation. We are left out. Y'all are talking about us without us all the time.
Yeah.
And it's been that way forever.
Yeah. And, I think that this is a thing that has to be something we find a better way to deal with. So the thing that's weird is I know that there seems to be a a way in which it's easy to say, well, I don't know, that many people. I don't see that people. But to me, I have not found it hard to find trans voices. If you know, I don't. So I don't know. I feel like I often say the same thing like about certain communities where I say the reason there's no diversity is because no one cares about diversity. If no one is looking around and noticing the lack of certain voices and saying, hey, this is a bit weird. Notice there aren't any fill in the blank in our community, then that's probably why there aren't any fill in the blank in your community. So this is an issue, but it's even, I think, more so an issue at these big platforms, right? These big news organizations where there's no representation, these big papers where there's no representations. In other words, the people that, for better or worse, sort of set the table for the rest of us when we're having the conversation. It's critical. I don't know if Stephanie stepped away from her camera for a minute, so let me go ahead and Wayne, I'll let you get in, but then I'm going to play that video that Steph shared.
Yep. Yeah. As you said earlier, this isn't the left eating itself because it's not a complete firestorm. I would probably say the majority of the tweets that I saw from leftists or progressives with check marks, they were taking the time to explain to Anna what the issue is. You know what I mean? They weren't saying, fuck you, you're dead to us. They were saying, this is the context in which you're harming people. Now,
Yes.
now Anna has two options. She can either take that into account and realize the people that are hurt by her words are actually hurt. Like she's saying, like she may not know it, but like she's saying that like the legislation that passed that includes these people is like less than her. That's the context. It's not what she meant, but it can be taken by that because there was a whole nother context that she didn't understand or know about. I get that and I respect that. But she can either take that information, internalize it, and be better, or
Right.
she can go the Xerxes route.
And I think that was my thing earlier was like, right, like it was to what regard does a charitable listening allow a person to say, okay, yeah, it really does seem like you think you were talking about something else here, but whiff, right? Part of
It's,
what is, oh, go ahead.
yeah, it's hard. I'm just gonna say super quick. It's hard to judge that because everybody's different. But like in general, like especially if it's somebody who you feel like is generally on your side, like give them like you gotta give them like two chances to fuck up. Like you know what I mean? Like okay, this is a fuck up in this situation. What you said initially. Now we're gonna talk about it. Okay, you seem to be digging your heels in. This looks like a second fuck up. Not quite there yet.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But like
right,
she has done a lot of good work. Like I'm left of Anna, but I do respect the good work she does.
same.
Yeah.
And I often feel too like I need my allies, and so even when they fuck up, I need to pick them up, dust them off, because I still need them in the struggle right now. So I don't need you sitting around feeling too bad for yourself. But
100%.
the problem is people have to deal with that. And look, part of being an empathetic team and inside or whatever y'all is, we have to deal with pain. Pain has consequences. So for me, instance, like I don't hate the Young Turks, right? But I didn't want to put them on today, right? Because that's a sore wound for people in our community. And that's what people don't understand is we have to really come to grips with what it means to hurt people who support you one.
who support you.
or people who who support you, like, right? Like that's what's that's what's really at stake here. And yeah, I feel like it's disappointing, and I do wish that they were like lowering the temperature, because to your point, Wayne, I think most of the pushback has just been an effort to correct the misunderstanding. So I also don't like the fact that it kind of feeds into the narrative of, but look, let them say what they say about us, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think you made a good point. This is what it sounds like when people disagree and correct each other. And I got some correction in this process, and also learned more about the issues that affect trans men. So hope Stephanie will rejoin us. But look, let's go ahead and play this clip.
Not news. It's just something that is becoming more. This is not news. It's just something that is becoming more and more obvious. I literally had a whole other video edited, planned, ready to go out today, but I am recording this as a very last minute replacement because I feel like it is more important to talk about. I hope you don't mind. Hey Spuds, it's Jamie. What's up? I hope you're well. Thank you so much for clicking on this video, and I hope you're gonna enjoy it, if that's the right thing. I hope you like it, or like my take on it. I don't know. Welcome to the video. I'm just going to dive straight in and say J.K. Rowling and transphobia is not something that is new to this channel, but it's always something I've taken a more neutral approach to, because to be honest, I've never been completely sure if she's truly like anti-trans, or if maybe she's just been a bit misinformed and misguided in her approach to some things on trans matters. She supported Maya Forstater. This is something I've also spoken about in a video. And Maya is a lady who was being transphobic in her place of work and felt wronged for being fired for that behavior. J.K. Rowling has also liked...
All right, I just want to add here, I feel him with what he's saying about not knowing. And I often just talk about how we live in a time where plausible deniability is weaponized. And so I feel like it's okay to like acknowledge that, and then go the extra mile to clarify yourself, right? Because if was in Anna Kasparian's shoes, for instance, I would definitely be able to see how someone who was a TERF or deliberately was trying to be insensitive to trans men could say what I said, and then try to sort of hide behind the guise of a misunderstanding, right? And so like that, I think that's like extra motivation to apologize and admit when you're wrong and clarify when when you say something that can be taken ambiguously. And that's kind of the problem of doubling down, right? Because when you take a culture where, again, people lean towards saying things that they can make sound marginally acceptable, which I call weaponizing plausible deniability, and then doubling down on problematic things you say, like that's creating a preponderance of the evidence that's troubling, to say the least. Stephanie, do you want to, I know you brought this up, did you want to say anything before? I don't want to just play this now that you came back. Okay.
Anti-trans tweets in the past, but when there was backlash to this, she had a representative state that she had a, I'm quoting this, clumsy and middle-aged moment. Well, I'm pretty sure there are no excuses that can be made by or for her this time, as J.K. Rowling has directly written transphobic tweets from her account. It's not just liking, it's not just supporting somebody, literally just full-on anti-trans tweets. The cherry on this transphobic and rather turfy hat trick, as yesterday she posted these tweets. Just gonna leave them there for a minute, let you maybe read them. You could pause.
I'll read them for the lurkers. If sex isn't real, there's no same-sex attraction or sex isn't real. I know, it's so weird. The lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate to speak the truth. Quote, people who menstruate, I'm sure there used to be a word for those people. Someone help me out. Wombin, wimp, und, wombud. Opinion, creating a more equal post-COVID-19 world for people who menstruate. Now, I wanted to read those tweets, right? Because this is what I meant when I said I wish I went out of my way to investigate more when this J.K. Rowling thing happened. I tend to quote unquote see myself as a person who doesn't get into celebrity gossip, but right, I don't. That's a bad excuse to not pay attention to something that's affecting this many people. Anyway, but it's very clear from these tweets, right? Like this is like exactly what so many of the problems that people saw with Anna's tweet, right? The fact that this use of this language, people who menstruate, the suggestion that this is somehow, you know, problematic or harmful to cis women, the suggestion, like the sort of tokenizing of support for the trans community within a problematic statement, right? Like, had I seen and understood the problems with this, I would have sooner recognized the problems with Anna. So today, Anna served as the impetus for a lesson I should have learned back then. But I think that's how these things work, right? There's something that puts this shit on your radar. Hopefully you come to gain some sort of real awareness of how language is used in these problematic ways, and then that makes it easier to recognize going forward. But I did want to slow it down here to like really read it so you could see that this is a really apt comparison. Go ahead, Steph.
The thing is, that's exactly it. That's exactly the point, and that's exactly the problem. Most people simply don't care. I mean, I spent years being in a different closet with nicer clothes, not having to worry about any of this shit. And you know, but it wasn't really. I've never been shy about who I am and what my history is, and you know, because of my life circumstances, it'd be kind of pointless to do so. But I never really bothered with any of this stuff until people started threatening me with laws. Like most people don't really care all that much to dive into the minutia of what J.K. Rowling said about trans people, what anybody else said about trans people.
Right, the real details of the sports examples or whatever.
The rubber meets the road when people are trying to take away rights you've had forever.
Absolutely.
And trying to codify these things into law, and trying to point at you as somebody different. In my real life, I'm just an old woman. In my real life,
trying to sail as much as you can, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to live
while the ocean will have you.
In their real lives,
yeah,
trans people are just people trying to live.
Yeah,
and it's not, it's not because we do have it's the double-edged sword of visibility, because the medical profession has realized, oh, well, there are these people. We don't see them very frequently, but maybe we ought to be able to treat them with some degree of sensitivity and dignity. We ought to refer to them in different ways. It's no disgrace to women or men to have somewhat neutral language in dealing with people,
Right.
people's physical problems. That's the other thing that it all ties into. It's like, well,
Yes.
the trans agenda denies sex. I don't deny sex.
And for
No,
yeah.
no, I don't. It's not. It's. I mean, I have a different view, perhaps, but not out of the realm of reality. I'm not denying biology and saying that sex is very complex, even among human beings.
Mm.
And it's very difficult to drill it down to this is determinative. I mean, the closest you can get is Joanna Harper's, in utero, a male is a uterus that proceeds along a path, a developmental pathway towards the development of testes and sperm, and a female is one that develops along a developmental path of uterus and ovaries. But that's in utero, and it happens
Right.
very early, and it doesn't always happen exactly the same way.
Right.
And it's like, and so there's all sorts of complexities there.
Right.
You can't drill it down that hard.
Right. Absolutely.
And when it comes to people's living lives, it's even more complex, because once you pop out, there you are.
Yeah, and I'm still obviously trying to work through this myself so that I can have my own language for it, but it almost seems in a sense like it's like one way to think about it is almost like pronouns, right? Like the same way most of us who consider ourselves trans allies think it's good to use pronouns that people ask you for, including just, the general inclusive ones, right? If you don't know, just use an inclusive pronouns. And this is a similar thing where it's just inclusive language, and we don't talk about it because it's not pronouns. But if we think about it as the issue that it is, it's just another example of inclusive language, and it's important that we support inclusive language and don't deride inclusive language. And
It's so silly.
it's not that hard. It really isn't that hard.
I can have a good time,
Yeah.
folks.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm just
Yeah. Okay.
going.
Cool.
The video if you wanted to read them fully. They'll be back later, don't worry. It's like she'd initially been testing the waters with her anti-transness, like a kid pressing the buttons to see how far they could go before they got in trouble. But no, not anymore. She's just gone full out this time. No holding back. Like, she's just let us know her views. We are in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of protesting for Black Lives Matter. And it honestly hurts my soul to see that despite all of this existing crap that we have going on in the world at the minute, this is what she decided to use her platform for. This being transphobia. I wanted to talk to you about why what she tweeted recently was transphobic, and why it's so hurtful to the trans community, the partners of trans people, friends, family, supporters of the trans community, why it is just hurtful to transness in general. So her first tweet read, and I'm gonna read this so I get it right word for word. If sex isn't real, there is no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real, the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate to speak the truth. Firstly, no one is trying to say that sex isn't real. In my opinion, this is just a very weak thing said by anti-trans people to make trans people seem illogical. But Sex is not what defines a person's gender. And using this argument and trying to say that sex is the be-all and end-all and sex is the same as gender is very outdated. Some people might see me, a trans man, and say that due to the likelihood that my chromosomes are XX, not that I know or anybody else knows, that my sex is female. I'm just going to go through some points quickly about why this rhetoric is transphobic and, quite frankly, flawed. Chromosomes aren't always XX and XY, and they don't always match up with the typical biological sex that you would expect them to, or that many people would expect them to. Intersex people are a very real thing. Records of legal sex can be changed, just like records of gender identity. My legal sex is male, my birth certificate says male, and that's important. And why the hell does it matter? Trans men and trans women are not trying to say, look at me, I'm cisgender. We're not trying to hide our journeys. We just want to live our lives as the gender we know we are. So transphobes splitting hairs on this outdated and exclusive terminology is, quite frankly, getting very boring. As I said, no one is trying to say that sex isn't real, but making sex the be-all and end-all of experiences and who people are erases the lives and experiences of trans people, and that is invalidating. Another thing J.K. Rowling mentioned is same-sex attraction, and same-sex attraction is a term used by many anti-trans people as another way to invalidate trans people. It's a term used to describe me, a trans man who's in a relationship with a cis woman, as a lesbian couple. Me and my soon-to-be wife Shaba are clearly not in a lesbian relationship, as I am a man, and to say that we are or imply that we are is insulting to me as a trans person, Shaba as a partner of a trans person, and also, quite frankly, to lesbians, because again, I am a man. Transphobes try to use sexual attraction based on sex and not gender as a way to justify their discrimination, and to label trans men as women and trans women as men. It's so old. Grow up, move on. It's not right. We really don't need to erase the gender of trans people in this way. And you know what? There is far more to people and gender and attraction than the genitals you were born with and the chromosomes that you cannot see. I don't know about you, but I've never seen somebody and gone, ooh, that's a beautiful set of chromosomes you've got there. The alternative and correct way forward is to base attraction on gender. It's an inclusive term that does not mean you have to find trans people attractive. It just recognizes that genitals and chromosomes are not the only important things when it comes to attraction, because it recognizes the role that gender plays and accommodates trans people and our validity. Secondly, all the trans people I know, and I would bet you all the money in Gringotts that I know more trans people than J.K. Rowling. All the trans people I know definitely do not love her. And there's a big old but in her tweet that we really need to talk about. J.K. Rowling says, I love trans people, but... And we all know what follows a but, don't we? She's clearly just throwing that in there to keep a tiny little fingernail grip on the see-through veil of her not being anti-trans. You can't love trans people and then invalidate and shit on them to your 14 million followers in the same tweet. That's like saying I love biscuits, but biscuits don't exist and biscuits aren't really food and they don't deserve to be recognized as food. I'm sorry, what? The next thing she tweeted truly
Go
baffled
open the chat, I'm not
and this
a
one was a
racist,
sharing of an article about COVID and menstruation, and what J.K. Rowling had to say about this one was the following. People who menstruate. I'm sure there used to be a word for those people. Someone help me out. Womban? Wimpand? Woomud? Woomud. If you don't get it, J.K. Rowling is trying to be highly patronising by pretending to have forgotten the word woman when reading an article that uses the word people. Well, I am not a womban, wimpud, woomud, or even a woman, and I used to menstruate. So yes, JK, people who menstruate is the right term to use. Some women menstruate, some don't. Some men menstruate, some don't, and some non-binary people menstruate, and some don't. But having a title like men, women, and non-binary people who menstruate is a little bit long-winded, which is why it's easier to just shorten it down to people who menstruate, because it is not just women. I'd like to also point out that this is a brilliant example of being so blinded and blinkered of dislike towards a group in society that you're shooting yourself in the foot. By J.K. Rowling fighting to bond the terms menstruation and women together so strongly, it's actually excluding not just trans women, but also a lot of cis women as well. What about older cis women who have gone through menopause so no longer menstruate? What about people with PCOS, or who've had experiences like cancer and have had a hysterectomy, or don't menstruate for whatever other reason? Honestly, honestly, J.K. Rowling, you're a world-selling author and you can't even see the plot holes in your own tweet. By being so rigid in her views and erasing the experiences and the identities of trans people, J.K. Rowling is also erasing the experiences of some cisgender women and intersex people. Sex is not binary and we can't keep pretending like it is, and using that falseness as a way to invalidate trans people and intersex people. Finally, by claiming that more inclusive language and the progression of trans rights and acceptance will detract from other rights is the biggest pile of bull. The biggest. Equal rights for trans people does not mean less rights for women or cisgender people or anybody else for that matter. It's not pie, there's not a limited amount of slices, it's not tug of war, everyone can have rights, so just stop being such a twat. Rowling created one of the most loved series ever. Maybe even the most loved series ever.
Oh,
it was
yeah,
a
I said your
world
name,
that
Joel.
was an escape for many, including many within the LGBT plus
I just read your comment
The whole
out.
narrative of the series focused on a war where assholes discriminated against Muggle-borns because of what? Factors they can't control? Who they're born as? Does that sound familiar? The baddies lost and the heroes won for a reason. For the creator of this world to basically turn around and use her enormous and enormously influential platform to basically shit on the minorities that looked up to her and her creations is just so horrible to see. Now more than ever, it's to remember that support is out there and we can separate the creation from the creator. Trans women are women, trans men are men, non-binary people are valid. Check out the link in my bio to see how you can help and support black trans people, and let's all just try and stop shitting on each other, okay? So yeah, that is everything for today, guys. Let me know your thoughts on this matter. I hope you don't mind me having like a little bit of a rant in the last minute video. I just felt like it was really important to talk about this today. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Think about giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing if you want to, but no pressure. And yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Much love. Bye. My jumper says trans rights.
Yeah, I thought that was great. Super enlightening. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with me. Steph, I'm gonna let you close this out. I can't hear you. Uh-oh. Are you muted?
Of course I'm muted.
Okay.
Of course you can't hear me. I'm muted. Where are you going? You know, of course I'm muted. That's, yeah, I can't really, I can't top that. And that was from 2 years ago when, when Rowling came out and did her stuff. It's just, it just gets old, Jay. It just gets old.
Exhausting.
All of this gets old, and it gets exhausting, and it's every single time. It's a situation where you've got, you're sitting there having to explain to people, it's like I'm gonna show my age again. It's like it's like I Love Lucy. Lucy, explain yourself. I just feel like explain yourself. It's all the time, and it's like, why should I have to? It's why, for a person of such privilege to go into a forum where she knows what the pushback's going to dive into the issue in this way and say, I don't want to be known by my body parts. She could have done it in a positive way. She could have done it in a positive way. She could have gone into it with, I don't want to be known by my body parts. And trans men shouldn't want to be categorized by their body parts. But it had to be, call me a woman. Don't call me a birthing person.
Right.
And so, it's like, I am claiming for myself a position of privilege.
Sure.
That I already fucking have.
Right, yeah.
That I already fucking have.
Right.
Nobody called her a uterus haver. Nobody. I guarantee you.
Right. That's
No one.
yeah.
She did this for a political reason because she objects to what she considers to be a political imposition of a health department saying we need to be sensitive to a tiny minority of people. And she bought into a right-wing narrative in the most public way she possibly could have done. And I gotta ask why. And I've got to ask, and looking at the reaction thus far, it seems to me that why is because if it bleeds, it leads. Eyeballs on screens, asses in seats. And and it goes to a thing that is very near and dear to me when it comes to what allyship looks like. You don't get to be an ally by simply declaring yourself one, especially not when you do shit like that. You don't get to say I'm pure. I don't get to push back and call you a douchebag, because that's not going to be productive either.
Sure.
Right. That's not going to be helpful to the cause overall.
Right.
This seems to me to be a rather craven call for controversy and getting people to do whatever. I mean, maybe ratings were down or something, and eyeballs on screens and asses in seats were really important.
That's hard.
I see this kind of thing. It goes back to one of the things that we watched in Gather. Tracy Harris's latest
video,
not video, but podcast,
right,
talking about the intersection of philanthropy and capital and racism and misogyny and how it all fits together. It's like our systems are broken, and it seems to me that what's happening now is that even people on the left are willing to break the backs of the least among us, the people least powerful among us, break our backs just to perpetuate their own positions of privilege. And that is fucking infuriating to me.
And I think they have to see that too, right? That this will be seen as some sort of effort to court right-wing support or viewership. It feels like that will be the effect. And it's something I've had to think about myself, because I made a decision that I'm okay if people I don't agree with don't want to talk to me or don't think I'm a nice guy or don't think I'm a friendly, because at the end of the day, I'd rather be known for taking care of our community, right, than doing whatever it takes to be like, I'm neutral and I'll sit down with everybody. And look, yeah, some people are just gonna be like, nah, I don't like you. Because, but this is what I mean, like, that's what a lot of the doubling down felt like. Like, we're not gonna be bullied and we're gonna okay, fine. Point out that you're willing to go against the left when there's a reason to do so, right? To say we're going to go against the left because we don't want to admit we said something insensitive is silly hill to die on.
Yeah, well, I hope they reevaluate or look at it. I don't know. If I were to critique the response, it's like it's Twitter. It's like, forget about it, Jake. It's Chinatown. But the thing that really bothers me at the heart of it is that you've got to have known that medium was going to draw this kind of response, and for you to get up in high dudgeon that people are pushing back saying you're full of shit. I mean, I'd love to have a more reasoned response. I mean, God knows I'd be lovely if
No, I understand.
Hank would look at this video and
Yeah.
it's like, here's reasoned discussion as to what you've done and how it seems problematic. And they'd probably argue with it. I mean, I'd love to hear a direct
response, yeah.
but I'm never going to hear it.
Yeah,
it's going to be framed on this garbage network that a fucking right-wing billionaire fascist it controls. It's just
that'll be the interesting thing too, right? Does Tucker Carlson eat this up? And how like who knows? If not, then at least that next level of right-wing players feels like they'll eat it up. The Ben Shapiro types. That has to be dealt with. Thank you so much, Steph. Does anybody else have anything? I didn't know if anybody else was here. Lena, Joel, Wayne, UC Love, Punk. Joel doesn't. All right. Well, that's all right. Appreciate everybody. Thanks so much. And and again, I want to thank Stephanie and Lena and Wayne and everybody for the discussion we had earlier. Really appreciate you guys helping me understand the problem here. I hope that maybe some of you in the audience that maybe weren't aware of the situation or also may not have known the details about the whole J.K. Rowling thing, and hope you guys can see this is a real thread that we have to be sure that we are definitely not contributing to in any way, shape, or form. So, definitely hope to see them respond to this. But I definitely understand the frustration and that this is the type of hurtful thing that causes people to lose support, and that's not a bad thing. That's pain. It's hard to support someone who is insensitive to your pain and the pain of your community. And I think that's a very humanizing thing. It means that your sympathetic and empathetic reflexes are not hampered by the fact that the person you see is on the other side of a screen. So appreciate y'all. And please do hit the like button, whatever that means, for a video like this. Show support for the conversation, I guess, not necessarily the issue. But yeah, go ahead, smash the like button. We appreciate that. Go ahead and there are links in the descriptions if you want to support the community or support the channel. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Thank you all so much for tuning in. All right, we'll see you. We're out of here. Poof!
Zach, why she wanna leave me alone? Saying all I do is wrong. No rights when they been left turns. Playing that she gotta let it burn. Saying that the house not a home. Sunshine cause you heard it all before. Sometimes she don't wanna be alone. Most times she don't want me gone. She don't know I try my all. She don't know I sprung in the sun, but I'm going in the winter, so we good to the fall. Remember how I told you I get it and I win. Now I got it, you ain't answer my call. Wonder if I've been moving too strong. Maybe I just been moving too balls. Really hate when the feeling get lost. Nowadays she just dodge my calls. In the game throwing laws like Paul. Young legend Miss John like Wall. And I wish you never met like Call. Thick game lay it down like law. Made plans but you canceled them all. I was just trying to splurge in the mall. Now I'm home stacking bread till you call. It's time to roll. She tryna slide. We smoking Zah. Stop acting shy. Cause you a demon when I